We begin tonight with India's biggest security challenge, which also happens to be India's biggest business partner, China. After years of border tensions and a relentless search for alternatives, India is still hooked to Chinese imports. And the Make in India initiatives are yet to meaningfully mitigate our dependence on Beijing. So what New Delhi needs is a clearer policy, because the cost of not having one is too high. Industry leaders are knocking on the government's doors. They want a more flexible trade policy in India. They want more visas for Chinese workers because their losses are mounting. Consider this. India's electronic manufacturers have prepared a report. They have shared it with various government ministries. Now, this report talks about border tensions between India and China and how it is hurting their business. They say that they've lost some $15 billion in the past 4 years. These are production losses, 15 billion. Plus, there have been layoffs. A total of 100,000 jobs have been cut since 2020. Now, we must also point out that this was also the year when the pandemic began, 2020, and that too would have hit businesses. But the industry here is specifically pointing to tensions with China, and they've underlined two pain points. One, curbs on visas for Chinese workers, and two, scrutiny of Chinese companies. India has been investigating China's business interests and limiting the entry of Chinese workers. Now the industry in India says that this is hurting their business expansion. The electronics industry has lost potential export deals. This loss is said to be around $10 billion. So trade is a clear casualty of the border standoff. But this is a price that India will have to pay, because the alternative is letting China have its way without any action. You see, the latest round of problems began in 2020 when China escalated border tensions with India. And since then, the PLA, the Chinese army, has ramped up troop presence. They've expanded border infrastructure and committed unprovoked acts of aggression against India. So New Delhi had no choice but to respond. Cutting trade dependencies was part of a broader strategy against China, and the plan did work for a while. For at least 2 years, the US beat China to become India's largest trade partner. But this strategy seems to have run its course, because China is now back on top. In the last financial year, Chinese imports to India crossed $100 billion. And what is driving these imports? Critical sectors like technology. This includes smartphone and telecom parts, personal computers and laptops, pharma products, machinery, chemicals, and metals like iron and steel. More than 98% of India's imports were major industrial products. And these are essential imports. Factories and manufacturers need these items to produce goods. So finding alternatives for this supply is going to be challenging, and this dependence on China may last for the foreseeable future. Let me show you another report. It says that India could be rethinking visa rules. Some restrictions could be relaxed, and these changes may benefit Chinese technicians. They could be given faster clearances. This proposal is still under consideration. India has not decided on it yet, but it won't be an easy decision to make. You cannot overlook the needs of the industry. At the same time, you cannot give the Chinese a free pass. As long as their troops remain at the border, it cannot be business as usual with China. So the addiction to Chinese imports is a major vulnerability for India. And it's something that Beijing wants to leverage. Listen to this.
In fact, in recent years, the bilateral trade volume between China and India has continuously exceeded $100 billion, showing a trend of increasing year by year, proving the resilience and potential of trade cooperation between the two countries.
Now, this is something that China often highlights, that border tensions have not affected the overall India-China relationship. They love saying this. So what should New Delhi do? Work on its strategy, set clear rules of engagement, and limit China's involvement in India's economy. In fact, a new policy is being considered. It could become the new template to limit Chinese imports. And we told you about this last week. New Delhi may allow joint ventures between Indian and Chinese companies, but with some conditions. The government could insist on majority shareholding of the Indian partner. So while it's a joint venture, the control remains in Indian hands. And the role of the Chinese partner is limited to, say, some initial funding and technology transfer. The Indian partner should be able to handle the rest. Having said that, in the long term, the aim should be to completely pivot away from Chinese imports. That may require India to rework its trade policy, prioritize exports over imports, and this is a larger issue. It's not just limited to China. Today, India has a trade deficit with its top 9 trading partners. So clearly, a lot more needs to be done on this front to address the larger trade imbalance. And within this, trade ties with China need urgent attention because it has become a key strategic challenge for India.